The night is fading slowly over the hills of Crowthorne Shire, and the first light of morning begins to stir, quiet and pale, touching the soft edges of the mist. A faint wind moves through the tall grass, carrying the scent of rain and earth, and somewhere in the distance, a single bird calls once, then falls silent again. Inside a small cottage near the edge of the meadow, time seems to rest. The air holds stillness, and the warmth of sleep lingers in every corner of the wooden room. Thomas Green lies awake, not moving, listening to the sound of gentle breathing around him. His wife, Sarah, rests beside him, holding their youngest child close. The baby shifts softly in her arms, a faint sigh escaping before returning to calm. Above them, the roof of straw and wood creaks in slow rhythm with the wind, a sound familiar and quiet, the kind that belongs to old homes and early mornings. Each breath, each sound blends into the stillness that fills the space. A small drop of water slips through the thatch and falls onto the floor. The sound is tiny, but it feels like a heartbeat within the silence. Thomas opens his eyes fully, the dim light of dawn drawing faint shapes across the room. A wooden chest by the wall, a small chair near the hearth, the soft outlines of 6 sleeping children gathered close for warmth beneath thin blankets. The room is small but filled with life. The air smells faintly of hay and smoke, and the walls seem to hold the memory of many mornings like this. Sarah shifts slightly, her hand brushing against Thomas's arm. He turns his head and sees her eyes half open, peaceful but alert, the quiet care of a mother who wakes before the world does. She gives a small smile, one that says everything without a word. He nods, a slow motion in the dim light. And for a while, they stay like that. Still, aware, calm. Thomas finally sits up, his feet touching the cold wooden floor. The boards creak softly beneath him, the sound blending with the faint hum of the wind outside. He takes his jacket from the hook near the bed, the fabric rough but familiar beneath his fingers. The small window near the door lets in a dim light, and when he opens it a little, the cool air slides in gently, bringing with it the smell of wet grass and quiet earth. He steps outside, his boots sinking slightly into the damp ground. The world beyond the cottage is wrapped in silver mist, soft and low, covering the fields that stretch into the horizon. The shapes of trees stand in the distance, blurred by the haze. Everything feels slow and kind. A thin line of smoke rises from the chimney, curling upward before dissolving into the pale sky. The sound of the early morning fills the air, the faint rustle of leaves, the low whisper of the wind, a single crow calling far away. Thomas breathes deeply, the air cool in his lungs, and for a moment he simply stands still, feeling the weight of calm that surrounds him. Behind him, from inside the cottage, comes the faint stirring of life. Sarah moving softly, a child turning in sleep, the sound of quiet belonging. He walks toward the small yard, where the ground is uneven but familiar, his steps unhurried. Near the barn, a patch of frost glimmers faintly where the sun will soon touch. The wooden fence creaks as he passes, its old nails holding firm through the years. He pauses near the doorway, listening again. There is no rush, no call, no demand. Only the rhythm of life as it begins. Another day. In the still air, he can hear his own heartbeat, slow and steady. The mist drifts lower, softening every sound, wrapping the world in calm. For a moment, it feels as if time itself has paused to rest. The morning has only just begun, and yet it carries the peace of something eternal, the cottage, the field, the breath of wind. all flow together in a quiet harmony that asks for nothing and promises only rest. The room of small dreams. Inside the cottage, the air remains quiet, holding the last trace of night. The window lets in a thread of light that rests softly on the floor, pale and thin, like a gentle hand brushing the surface of the world. The glow touches the edge of the table, the small chair, the wooden wall marked by time, and then spreads toward the sleeping children. The sound of their breaths fills the room, slow and even, rising and falling like waves against a calm shore. Thomas stands by the door for a moment, looking at them. Emma, the eldest, sleeps near the wall, her hand resting on her little brother's shoulder. William lies beside her, his curls pressed against the blanket, his chest moving in steady rhythm. George, the youngest boy, sleeps near the foot of the bed, curled like a kitten, his small feet tucked beneath the blanket. Sarah Jr. and Thomas Jr. share a small corner mattress, their arms tangled together. And at the far side, baby Mary lies close to her mother, her tiny fingers curled, her lips parting with the smallest sighs. The room feels alive, not with sound or movement, but with warmth, the invisible kind that belongs only to home. The walls breathe quietly, the floor holds the faint echo of 1,000 small footsteps, and the air carries the scent of straw, smoke, and milk. It is a place shaped not by riches, but by rhythm, the simple rhythm of rest, of breath, of days that begin and end the same way, calm and complete. Thomas moves closer to the hearth. The ashes from the night's fire still glow faintly beneath the soot. He kneels, taking a small piece of wood, placing it gently among the embers, coaxing a spark without sound. The faint flame catches, trembling for a moment before it steadies, spreading its soft orange light across the stones. It warms the air just enough to make the shadows shift. Sarah turns in her sleep, her face illuminated briefly by the glow. Her expression is peaceful, unguarded, her breath slow and even. Thomas sits for a while near the fire, his back straight, his hands resting on his knees. The flame flickers quietly, painting the walls with moving light. In that still moment, nothing stirs except the gentle dance of brightness. The warmth touches his face, and for a breath of time, he closes his eyes. The faint sound of the wind outside fades, replaced by the soft crackle of the fire and the faint creak of the wood. He opens his eyes again and glances at the small clock on the shelf. Its ticking is faint, slow, steady. The sound folds perfectly into the quietness of the room. He looks again at his children, at Sarah, and feels the unspoken peace of the moment. No thoughts come, only stillness. The world outside might be wide, but within these walls everything he needs exists in silence. The morning grows lighter, inch by inch. The mist outside begins to lift, and the first real rays of sun reach through the window. Dust motes drift in the air, floating like tiny golden seeds. The room brightens just enough to show its details. The small shelf with a few folded linens, the wooden stool by the wall, the simple crossbeam holding a string of herbs drying from the summer past. Each object sits in its place, unmoving, part of the quiet story this house has always told. Sarah begins to stir. Her eyes open slowly, and for a few seconds she simply breathes, her gaze unfocused, peaceful. Then she looks toward Thomas, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's morning," she says softly. He nods, the corners of his mouth lifting in a calm smile. She sits up carefully, making sure not to wake the baby. The blanket slips from her shoulders, revealing the faint light tracing her hands. Thomas stands, crossing the room to close the window slightly, letting in only a soft thread of air. The breeze moves through the space, carrying with it the scent of wet grass and faint smoke from the chimney. Sarah adjusts the blanket around Mary, and for a long while, neither of them speak. There is no need. The house itself speaks through its quiet, a language made of creaks, whispers, and the breath of morning. One by one, the children begin to wake. Emma opens her eyes first, blinking against the light, her hair falling over her face. She sits up slowly, then smiles sleepily when she sees her father near the fire. William stirs next, rubbing his eyes, stretching his arms in silence. The younger ones follow, still half dreaming, their movements slow and soft. The room fills with the faint sound of their waking, the rustle of blankets, the soft thud of small feet touching the floor, the whispered greetings between siblings. Sarah rises to prepare the morning's first task. She moves quietly, gathering a pot from the shelf, setting it near the fire. The water warms with a low hum, steam beginning to rise in thin ribbons. The smell of oats soon joins the warmth of the air. The children sit near the hearth, half drowsy, watching the fire flicker. Their faces glow with the first light of the day. Outside, a faint sound of birds carries through the open door. Thomas listens for a while, his hands resting on the edge of the table. The rhythm of life continues, slow and sure. The fields wait beyond the fence, the trees stand still, the mist dissolves into the air. Inside, Sarah hums softly, not a song, just a sound that keeps time with the quiet morning. The clock ticks again, the fire crackles, the children murmur to one another. Each sound adds a small piece to the calm pattern of life inside this house. The rhythm is gentle, unbroken, like the heartbeat of the world when it is at peace. Thomas walks to the doorway and looks out again. The light has changed now, no longer silver, but pale gold. The sky stretches wide, soft clouds drifting without direction. The air carries warmth, the kind that promises another day of quiet work and gentle hours. He breathes in deeply, feeling the calm settle through him. The house behind him continues to move in its slow, morning rhythm, and he knows that everything, for this moment, is enough. He turns back to Sarah and the children, to the glow of the fire, to the soft hum of life within the walls. The morning is simple, the light steady, the air kind. Each breath, each sound, each quiet movement holds its place in the long unfolding of the day. And as the warmth spreads gently through the room, time itself seems to slow, stretching softly into the hours ahead. The world remains still, waiting, breathing, alive in its peaceful silence. The first light. The light grows stronger over Crowthorne Shire, yet it stays soft, pale gold drifting across the horizon. The mist moves slowly through the fields, thinning, curling, then vanishing in delicate swirls. Every blade of grass holds a drop of water that glints when the sun reaches it, a shimmer that fades and returns with each passing breath of wind. The earth itself seems to wake with quiet purpose, without hurry, without noise. Thomas stands near the doorway, watching the world take shape. The colors unfold one by one. Grey turns to silver, silver to green, and then to a muted amber, where sunlight touches the edge of the fields. The fence lines stretch into the distance, their posts leaning slightly, shaped by years of weather. The air smells of damp soil, wood smoke, and morning dew. Nothing stirs loudly, even the birds begin their calls as if mindful of the silence. Behind him, the gentle sounds of the house continue. The faint murmur of Sarah's voice, the clink of a wooden spoon against a pot, the soft shuffle of small feet moving across the floor. Life inside and outside breathe together, one slow rhythm, one patient pattern. Thomas takes another step into the yard, his boots brushing against the grass, each sound small but clear. He walks toward the well near the edge of the property. The stones are cool and damp under his hand as he turns the handle. The rope creaks in soft rhythm as the bucket descends, then returns with water that catches the light. The sound of it pouring into a tin pail echoes gently, blending with the low hum of the wind. He sets the bucket down beside him, the air still cool against his face. As he straightens, he can see farther now, the ridgeline of the hills, faint smoke from a neighbor's chimney, the shape of a cart moving slowly down the distant road. The world expands quietly. There is no rush in it, no demand. Everything in sight moves at the pace of breath, unbroken, steady. He takes a small drink from the dipper, the water clear and cold. A drop runs from his chin, falling onto the ground below. The sound is tiny, but in the stillness it feels like part of a greater pattern, the kind that connects every living thing in the slow unfolding of the day. From the doorway, Sarah steps out. Her shawl is wrapped around her shoulders, her hair catching the sunlight that now begins to warm the air. She stands beside Thomas, their movements quiet, their presence enough. She hands him a small cloth to dry his hands, and he takes it, folding it once before handing it back. For a moment, they simply look toward the fields together, breathing the same cool air. The children's voices drift faintly from inside. Emma speaking softly to William, the sound of George's small laugh, the scrape of a chair moving across the floor. Each sound is part of the calm, blending with the rustle of leaves overhead. Sarah smiles faintly and turns back toward the door, leaving Thomas by the well. He stays a while longer, leaning lightly against the post. The sun rises higher now, casting long lines of light across the ground. Shadows stretch behind the trees, slender and still. The air warms by degrees, carrying with it the faint scent of bread toasting over the fire inside. The combination of warmth and smell anchors him to the moment, a reminder not of thought, but of simple being. When he returns inside, the room glows differently. The soft orange of the fire meets the pale gold of morning, and the space feels alive. Sarah moves gently between table and hearth, her hands steady, her gestures calm. The children sit nearby, each in their small place, their faces touched by sunlight filtering through the window. The steam from the pot rises slowly, curling upward before fading. Thomas hangs his jacket on the peg and sits by the table. The sound of the chair legs against the floor is soft but grounding. Sarah places a small bowl in front of him. Warm oats, simple and plain. He nods, murmurs a quiet thanks, and begins to eat. Around him, the children do the same, spoons moving in rhythm, little sounds of contentment filling the air. The morning feels full in a quiet way. Nothing more is needed. After breakfast, Thomas wipes his hands on a cloth and steps again toward the door. The light has changed, deeper now, more defined. The mist has lifted from the far field, revealing rows of soil waiting for work. A single bird flies overhead, its wings cutting through the air with slow grace. He watches until it disappears beyond the trees. He gathers his tools from the shed, a worn spade, a rake, a small hoe. Each handle fits perfectly into his hands, smooth from years of use. The scent of dry wood and iron mixes with the morning air. He carries them to the edge of the garden, where the earth is soft, still damp from the night's dew. The children follow a few steps behind, curious, their footsteps light. He presses the spade into the ground. The soil yields easily, dark and rich beneath the surface. The sound is low, rhythmic, each motion steady and deliberate. The children watch quietly for a while before returning to their small games near the fence. Their laughter is faint, gentle enough not to disturb the air. Sarah appears again, placing a small basket on the table by the window, filled with cloth and thread. She sits and begins her quiet work, stitching with smooth, practiced motion. The needle moves in and out of the fabric, the thread sliding through softly, making a sound almost like whispering. The house holds its rhythm. Thomas outside, Sarah by the window, the children between them, the world beyond, resting under the calm of the growing day. Hours seem to pass without being counted. The light moves slowly across the walls, shifting from bright gold to a gentler hue. The air warms, then cools again as a faint breeze returns from the hills. In the distance, the faint sound of a cartwheel on gravel can be heard, and then it fades. Inside, the clock ticks on. The fire has settled into quiet embers. The children's voices soften as they draw or play with small wooden figures carved by Thomas in seasons past. Every sound belongs exactly where it is, and not too loud, not too soft. Thomas pauses his work and wipes his brow. He straightens, looking toward the horizon again. The sun is now high, the sky a clean pale blue, the fields shimmer faintly under its light. He takes a slow breath, filling his lungs, then lets it go. The sound of air moving through him feels almost like the wind itself, steady, without rush. From the window, Sarah looks up for a moment. Their eyes meet briefly, both calm, both at peace. She returns to her stitching. He returns to the soil. The day continues in balance. The first light of morning has long turned into full day, but its gentleness remains. It lingers in every movement, in the tone of each sound, in the way the air hums softly through the open door. The cottage, the field, the family, all part of the same quiet story, unfolding one breath at a time. And though the world outside continues wide and unending, here in this small corner of Crowthorne Shire, time feels held, unbroken, still breathing with the slow rhythm of the morning that never truly ends. The walk to the yard. The morning deepens into quiet brightness. The air has changed. It carries warmth now, the faint trace of sunlight touching every stone and blade of grass. The mist that once floated across the fields has lifted entirely, leaving the land clear and soft beneath the open sky. Thomas stands by the door for a while, his hand resting against the wooden frame, letting his eyes adjust to the light. He can see far, across the small patch of garden, over the fence, beyond to the meadow where the land slopes gently downward. He steps outside, and the sound of his boots pressing against the ground fills the silence in steady rhythm. The earth is still damp from the night, dark patches of soil glistening faintly where dew remains. A few birds scatter from the nearby hedge, their wings fluttering lightly before they settle again farther down the path. The sky above stretches wide and open, a pale canvas brushed with thin, white clouds drifting slowly. As he walks toward the yard, the familiar sounds of morning gather around him. The low creak of the barn door moving slightly in the breeze, the soft hum of bees beginning their slow work near the edge of the garden, the distant cluck of hens behind the fence. Each sound comes gently, never disturbing the stillness, never rushing the air. The world feels alive but calm, filled with motion that does not hurry. Thomas passes the small patch of herbs near the corner of the cottage. The scent rises faintly as his boots brush against the edges of the plants. Rosemary, thyme, a trace of mint that lingers as he moves. He pauses a moment, touching one leaf between his fingers, the surface still cool and damp. The smell is sharp and clean, carrying with it the memory of countless mornings just like this one. At the yard, the old barn stands quiet, its wooden boards darkened with time. The door leans slightly, but it still holds. He pushes it open carefully, and the hinges give a long, low sigh. Inside, the air is cool and dry. Dust floats through the thin beams of light slipping through the cracks. The scent of hay and old timber fills the space. Everything here seems untouched, waiting patiently for the day's slow rhythm to begin again. In one corner, the tools are arranged in quiet order. The spade, the rake, the sickle, their handles worn smooth by his hands over the years. He runs his palm across one of them, feeling the grain of the wood. A memory passes through him, not as thought, but as sensation, of mornings past, of work done, of time spent repeating these same motions. There is comfort in that repetition, in knowing each task before it comes. He lifts the small bucket near the wall, still damp from yesterday's use, and carries it outside. The sound of metal brushing against stone rings softly through the air. As he walks toward the well, a light breeze passes through the yard, moving the long grass in slow waves. It carries the faint scent of hay and smoke, and the soft rustle of leaves follows it. The world seems to breathe with him, steady, unbroken. He lowers the bucket into the well again, the rope sliding between his hands. The sound echoes downward, deep and hollow. When the bucket touches the water, it makes a gentle splash that fades quickly. The rope tightens as he draws it back up, drop by drop glimmering in the sunlight. When he pours the water into a trough nearby, the surface ripples in quiet circles before settling once more into stillness. From inside the cottage, Sarah's voice drifts faintly through the air. She speaks softly to the children, her tone even, steady, carrying the kind of calm that fills the house without effort. Thomas listens for a moment, his eyes half closed, before setting the bucket down. The sound of laughter follows soon after, the kind that comes only from children, light and brief, fading into the morning air. He turns toward the field beyond the yard. The fence stands uneven, the old wood split but holding firm. As he leans against it, the view opens wider, green and gold patches of land stretching into the distance, the faint shimmer of the stream that winds between them, the quiet hum of life continuing everywhere. The sunlight spreads across the land in long, slow movements, touching everything with warmth. Thomas breathes in deeply. The air carries the faint sound of the world at work, a cart moving on the far road, a dog barking once in the distance, the rustle of a bird landing on a branch. None of it feels apart from him. It all folds into the same still rhythm. His shoulders relax as he watches the light shift over the ground. He moves back toward the barn, stepping carefully over the uneven stones. The shadows inside have shortened, and thin rays of light move slowly across the floor. He reaches for the broom near the wall and begins to sweep, each motion unhurried, the soft scrape of straw against wood making its own gentle pattern. Dust rises in small clouds, catching the light before it fades back into the air. Outside, the children have come into the yard now. Their steps are light, their voices soft. Emma carries a small basket with a few folded cloths inside. William follows, holding a piece of twine he found near the fence. The younger ones trail behind, curious about everything, their laughter blending with the sound of the breeze. Sarah stands by the doorway, her shawl pulled tight around her shoulders, watching them with quiet ease. Thomas pauses his work and looks up. The sight before him is simple: his family, the yard, the open sky. Yet there is something in the stillness of it that holds weight, not heavy but grounding, like the steady beat of a heart that asks for nothing but to keep going. He nods once towards Sarah, and she smiles faintly, the kind of smile that belongs to calm mornings and soft light. He finishes sweeping and leans the broom back against the wall. The barn smells of dust and straw again, familiar and real. When he steps outside once more, the warmth of the sun touches his face fully now. It feels gentle, like a hand resting there for a moment before moving on. The children gather near the well, looking at their reflections in the water. Their voices rise and fall softly, never sharp, never breaking the peace. Sarah joins them, adjusting a small cap on Thomas Jr.'s head. The scene unfolds slowly, like a painting that breathes. Thomas walks around the side of the house, checking the small gate that leads to the path beyond. The hinges creak, but they hold steady. The earth there is packed and firm, the footprints of yesterday still visible. He runs his boot lightly across the surface, smoothing the marks. The world feels unchanged, and in that sameness, there is comfort. He looks up again. The sky is wide and endless, pale blue brushed with the faintest trace of white. The sunlight moves across the land with the patience of time itself. He stands there for a while, just breathing, his hands resting at his sides, his heart slow and even. Behind him, the soft sounds of family life continue. Sarah's quiet words, the murmur of the children, the creak of the well rope, the low hum of the wind passing through the yard. Each sound belongs perfectly in its place, part of a living rhythm that has no beginning and no end. When Thomas finally turns back toward the house, the day has fully arrived. The light rests on every surface, warm and steady. The air carries the faint scent of earth, smoke, and morning bread. The sound of life, human, natural, small and vast, fills the space between every breath. He steps once more toward the door, feeling the gentle weight of the sun on his shoulders, and the yard behind him glows with quiet life. The world is awake now, but it remains calm, and every sound seems to move at the same slow pace as his own heart. The slow routine. The day settles into its rhythm. The air carries warmth now, but it is still soft, touched by the coolness of the earlier hours. Light spills evenly across the cottage yard, tracing gentle shapes on the ground. The outline of the well, the fence, the tall grasses, swaying slowly in the breeze. The world has taken its full breath, and everything moves in calm balance. Thomas stands near the gate, his hands resting against the worn wood, his eyes following the quiet motion of the clouds above. Each one drifts with unhurried grace, changing shape as it glides over the hills. There is no rush in them, only steady passing, the same kind of patience that lives in the land itself. Behind him, he hears the sound of Sarah's footsteps on the wooden floor, measured and familiar. She steps outside, holding a small basket of folded cloths. The fabric catches the light as she sets it on the bench near the door. Her shawl has slipped slightly from her shoulders, and she pulls it back into place, her fingers moving without thought. For a while, she stands beside Thomas, their silence shared, their breathing in time with the slow rhythm of the morning. From within the house, the faint clatter of dishes and the low hum of a kettle mark the start of the day's quiet routine. The children's voices blend with it. Soft words, laughter that fades quickly, the steady sound of movement that fills the house with life. The scent of warm bread drifts through the open door, light and comforting, joining the smell of grass and sun-warmed earth outside. Thomas turns from the gate and crosses the yard. The chickens gather near the fence, their soft clucking mixing with the whisper of the wind. He scatters feed from a small tin pail, and the birds move closer, pecking at the ground in gentle rhythm. Their feathers glint in the sunlight, flashes of white and brown shifting with every movement. The sound they make, soft, continuous, becomes part of the landscape's quiet song. He moves to the small garden next. The rows of plants are neat and steady, their leaves trembling slightly in the breeze. He kneels, brushing a bit of soil from one of the shoots, pressing the earth down around its base. His hands work slowly, each motion careful, deliberate. The earth beneath his fingers is cool and damp, alive with the scent of growth. Nearby, bees hum low over the blossoms, moving from flower to flower in their own slow, patient dance. The hours pass without being noticed. The light changes its color almost imperceptibly, gold softening into white, white fading toward a warmer hue. Shadows shift beneath the fence, stretching, then folding back again. Nothing breaks the rhythm. Every sound, every breath belongs to the same pattern that repeats itself day after day. Sarah appears again with a cloth draped over her arm. She kneels by the small tub beside the wall, filling it halfway with water from the bucket Thomas had drawn earlier. The sound of water pouring is steady, soothing, like rain on quiet ground. She dips one of the cloths and begins to wash, her hands moving with practiced ease. The fabric slaps gently against the surface, and droplets glimmer in the light before falling back into the tub. Thomas glances toward her as he stands, brushing his hands on his trousers. She looks up briefly and they share a small nod, no words exchanged, no need for them. In this place, silence speaks clearly enough. The children's laughter drifts out again, rising and fading, joining the sounds of water, wind, and soil. The smallest ones play near the fence, collecting smooth stones and bits of dry grass. George holds up a feather, watching it tremble in his palm before the wind carries it away. Emma sits on the step with her sketchbook, tracing lines of the barn and the well, her pencil moving slowly across the page. William watches her, leaning his chin on his knees, his eyes half closed against the light. The scene unfolds like a living painting, motion without noise, change without disturbance. Every movement seems to flow from the one before it. Even the air moves softly, circling through the yard, carrying with it the sounds and scents of quiet labor. After some time, Thomas gathers the tools again. He returns them to the barn, leaning each one back in its place. The faint sound of metal against wood echoes briefly, then fades into stillness. He wipes his hands on the edge of his sleeve and steps back out into the sunlight. The air feels different now, a little warmer, a little heavier, but still calm. Inside the cottage, The faint creak of floorboards signals Sarah's movement as she clears the table. The fire crackles softly, low but steady, the flames dancing behind the iron grate. The clock ticks, a quiet, patient sound marking time that doesn't seem to matter. Thomas walks toward the far edge of the yard where the path meets the field. From there, he can see the stream, glimmering faintly between the trees. The water moves slowly, curling around smooth stones, its surface broken only by the occasional leaf drifting past. The air near the stream is cooler, touched by shade and the scent of moss. He stays there for a while, watching the movement of water, the way light bends across its ripples. When he turns back toward the cottage, the sight feels familiar and full. The small shape of home against the bright landscape, the faint trail of smoke from the chimney, the sound of his family inside. The simple pattern of it brings a sense of balance, though he never names it as such. It simply is as constant as the sun above and the soil beneath. As the morning drifts toward midday, Sarah calls softly from the doorway. Her voice carries easily through the air, warm and even. Thomas lifts his head and nods once before making his way back across the yard. The children follow behind him, their steps light, their faces bright with quiet contentment. At the table, bowls are set out once again. Bread, a bit of milk, some fruit from the basket near the wall. The family sits together, the sounds of eating and gentle talk blending with the hum of the world outside. Light filters through the window, painting soft golden lines across their faces. No one speaks loudly, there is no need. Each small sound, the scrape of a spoon, the whisper of fabric, the rhythm of breath, builds upon the next, creating a harmony too subtle to name. The house feels alive but at rest, full yet silent, like the pause between one heartbeat and the next. After the meal, Thomas pushes his chair back quietly and stands. The children clear their places, moving in practiced rhythm. Sarah wipes the table with slow circular motions, her sleeves rolled up, her hands steady. The scent of bread lingers in the air, warm and faintly sweet. Thomas steps outside once more. The sun now stands high, its light softer but still bright. The yard stretches out before him, unchanged yet new again in the shifting glow. The wind carries the faint hum of insects, the rustle of grass, the song of a bird high in the oak tree beyond the fence. Everything moves, yet nothing disturbs the peace. He closes his eyes for a moment, breathing in the stillness. The warmth of the sun touches his skin, and the sounds of the world blend into one, steady, calm, and whole. This is the slow routine, the unbroken pattern of days that come and go like gentle waves. No hurry, no rush, only the quiet continuation of life, unfolding softly in the heart of Crowthorne Shire. The hearth and the table. The day moves gently toward its middle. The sun stands higher now, but its light is soft, falling through the clouds in long golden bands. Inside the cottage, the air is warm and still, carrying the faint scent of bread, milk, and wood smoke. The walls glow in the filtered light, their rough texture catching every beam as if to hold it a little longer. Sarah stands near the hearth, her sleeves rolled just above her elbows, stirring the pot that hangs over the slow fire. The sound is faint, a wooden spoon moving in quiet circles, the bubbling of oats simmering low. The rhythm is even, steady, like breathing. Steam rises from the pot, curling toward the ceiling before it fades into the still air. Thomas sits near the window, his hands folded loosely on his knees. From where he sits, he can see the yard beyond, the sunlight resting across the grass, a slow breeze moving through the branches of the old tree. The shadows outside shift, thin and long, marking the passage of time without insistence. Inside, the room holds its own rhythm, the crackle of the fire, the soft movement of Sarah's hands, the slow ticking of the clock above the door. The children move quietly now. The morning's energy has softened into calm. Emma helps fold the linens that rest on the chair. William and George sit on the floor with small wooden figures, arranging them in a line, moving them with care. Sarah Jr. hums softly to herself as she holds the baby, rocking back and forth in time with her own tune. Every motion is small, contained, belonging. When Sarah lifts the pot from the fire, the smell of cooked oats fills the air. Warm, simple, comforting. She sets it on the table and begins to ladle portions into small bowls. The table is narrow and old, the wood smooth from years of hands resting upon it. The light from the window touches the bowls, making their surfaces shine faintly. Thomas rises from his chair, moving to help her. He places spoons beside each setting, his steps soft against the wooden floor. They eat together without sound at first, the quiet broken only by the gentle tap of metal against bowl, the rustle of fabric as someone shifts, the faint sigh of the fire as it burns low. The air hums with contentment, the kind that doesn't need words. Each person takes their time, the pace slow and easy. The taste of warm food and the steady quiet of the house create a calm that feels complete. Outside, the world moves on at the same pace. Birds call faintly from the trees. Somewhere down the road, a cart rolls past, its wheels crunching over the gravel before fading into distance. The wind passes lightly across the roof, then stills again. The sound of the day continues, but inside, the family remains wrapped in their own soft circle of stillness. When the bowls are nearly empty, Sarah pours milk for the children, the liquid falling smoothly, catching the light. The small sound it makes, a quiet rhythm of pouring and stopping, blends with the gentle ticking of the clock. Thomas leans back slightly, his gaze falling on the fire. The flames have settled now, reduced to glowing coals, but the warmth remains steady. It reaches the edges of the room, pressing softly against the walls, holding the air in gentle balance. Emma finishes her meal and begins to gather the empty bowls. Her motions are calm, precise, her face serene in the afternoon light. William helps her, carrying the smaller spoons to the basin near the hearth. The sound of water running joins the rest of the quiet. Soft, rhythmic, fading as quickly as it begins. Thomas moves his chair closer to the window again. From there, he can see the fields beyond the yard. The color of the landscape has changed with the rising sun. What was pale green in the morning now glows with a faint golden hue. The clouds drift slowly, their edges bright where the sunlight touches them. The movement of the world outside is steady, unbroken, the same pulse that moves through every hour of every day. Sarah wipes the table, her hand moving in slow circles. The surface shines faintly where the light strikes it. She folds the cloth neatly when she's done, sets it aside, and looks briefly toward the door, where the breeze slips through the small gap near the hinge. The sound it makes, a faint, hollow note, fills the silence like music. The children's voices have grown softer now, their energy fading with the warmth of the meal. George lies on the floor, tracing lines in the dust with his finger. Sarah Jr. sits near him, humming again, her voice blending with the faint whisper of the wind outside. Emma gathers her sketchbook from the shelf and sits by the window opposite her father, turning its pages quietly. The rustle of paper adds another layer to the house's calm symphony. The baby stirs in Sarah's arms, a small motion followed by a sigh. Sarah rocks her gently, her voice barely above breath as she hums a slow tune. The melody is simple, a pattern of low notes that repeat, soothing, steady. The fire crackles once more and the warmth deepens. Thomas glances toward his wife, then toward his children. The air between them feels full, not with sound but with presence. The kind of peace that comes not from silence, but from shared stillness. Everyone moving within the same quiet rhythm. The world beyond the walls seems far away now, its sounds softened, its edges blurred. The light through the window shifts again. It lands now on the corner of the table, then crawls slowly across the floor, touching the edge of Sarah's skirt, the side of Thomas's boot, the curve of the chair's armrest. Dust floats lazily through the beam, each speck glimmering before disappearing. Sarah sets the baby in the cradle beside the hearth. The small movement makes no sound but the faint creak of the wood. She tucks the blanket around the child and rests her hand on the cradle's side for a moment. The baby's breathing steadies almost immediately, slow and sure. Sarah straightens, smoothing her skirt, and looks toward the door. Thomas rises and opens it slightly, letting in a line of light and a thread of cooler air. The smell of grass and sunlight fills the room, soft and clean. The balance between warmth and breeze feels perfect. The sounds outside, the chirp of a bird, the faraway hum of the stream, blend with the quiet inside, forming something that feels whole. He closes the door again and returns to his seat. Sarah joins him by the window. They sit side by side, not speaking, not moving much. Their hands rest loosely in their laps, their faces calm. Around them, the house breathes in rhythm. The ticking clock, the faint sound of the cradle rocking, the low whisper of wind pressing against the thatched roof. Time drifts without notice. Minutes pass like a slow tide. The air shimmers faintly with heat, then cools again as the breeze shifts. The fire fades to embers, leaving only a soft orange glow. Inside this moment, everything feels perfectly balanced. Work done, hunger eased, warmth settled, stillness complete. The hearth holds its quiet flame, and the table stands empty but full of quiet memory. The world beyond waits, but here, in this gentle space, time rests in silence. The fields awaken. The quiet of the house softens as the light outside changes once more. The sun, higher now, spreads a soft brightness across the land, the kind that seems to hum rather than shine. It moves slowly over the yard, touches the fence, then slides across the open field beyond. The air feels fuller here, carrying the faint scent of warm soil, grass, and the sweet dryness of hay. Thomas rises from his chair, his movements unhurried, his breath even. Sarah glances toward him, their eyes meeting briefly, sharing an understanding that needs no sound. He nods almost imperceptibly, and she gives a small smile before turning back toward the cradle by the hearth. The baby stirs softly but remains asleep. The other children linger near the table, still quiet from the calm of the meal. Thomas takes his hat from the peg near the door and places it on his head. The familiar weight settles easily. He steps outside and the brightness of the day greets him. Gentle, steady, alive. The warmth of the sun brushes his face. The breeze carries a coolness from the north. For a moment, he simply stands there, taking it in, listening to the hum of the world. Behind him, the door opens again. Emma steps out first, her small sketchbook still in her hand, the pencil tucked carefully inside. William follows with a stick he's been carving, and the younger ones trail after, holding each other's hands as they cross the yard. Their steps are small but full of life, the soft sound of their movement blending with the wind. Sarah stands at the doorway, one hand resting against the frame, watching them go. Her face glows softly in the light. She doesn't call out, she doesn't need to. The rhythm of their life carries itself forward, without instruction, without change. Thomas walks toward the open gate, his shadow stretching long before him. The grass bends gently under his boots, each step pressing into the earth with a sound both firm and quiet. The children follow, their voices low, their laughter brief and fleeting. The path curves slightly before reaching the edge of the field, where the tall grass begins. The field itself lies wide and golden in the sunlight. It breathes slowly, its motion dictated by the breeze. Each blade of grass sways with the next, a sea of soft motion that seems endless. The sound it makes, a gentle rustling, continuous and low, fills the space around them. The horizon wavers slightly as if the air itself was shimmering. Thomas steps into the field. The warmth of the sun wraps around him, balanced by the faint coolness of the wind. He carries a small hoe in one hand, though for now he doesn't use it. The children spread out, walking through the grass, their hands brushing the tops of the stalks. Emma lifts her face to the light, eyes half closed, her hair moving gently with the air. Farther out, the brook winds through the land, narrow and clear. Its surface flashes with sunlight, tiny ripples marking the places where stones lie beneath. The sound of the water reaches them, soft, layered, like the whisper of distant breath. Thomas leads the way toward it, his pace unhurried, his eyes tracing the path of the stream as it curves beyond the trees. When they reach the bank, the children stop. George crouches first, touching the water's edge with his fingertips. It is cool, clean, alive. He laughs quietly, a sound so light it's almost carried away by the breeze. Sarah Jr. kneels beside him, her reflection wavering in the shallow water. Emma sits nearby, opening her sketchbook once more, her pencil moving slowly over the page. Thomas stands at the edge, looking across the water. The reflection of the sky trembles on the surface. Blue, white, and gold, all blending together. He takes a slow breath, the air moving through him like the wind through the grass. Every part of the world seems to be breathing with him. Steady, full, patient. The sound of insects hums softly in the air. Bees move lazily between the wildflowers that grow near the water, white, yellow, and pale violet. Their motion is smooth, unhurried. The scent of clover drifts upward, mingling with the faint sweetness of the stream. William finds a small stick and dips it into the water, drawing slow lines that ripple outward, disappearing before they reach the opposite bank. George tosses a pebble, and the circles it creates spread across the surface before fading into stillness again. The rhythm of each motion feels right, nothing too sudden, nothing too still. Thomas kneels by the water and dips his hands in. The coolness travels up his arms, a brief contrast to the warmth of the sun. He lets the water fall through his fingers, watching it return to its path. The light catches each droplet as it falls, turning it silver for a heartbeat before it disappears. Behind him, the sound of the children blends with the whisper of grass. Their voices rise and fall in patterns of calm play. A short laugh, a quiet hum, the soft thud of small feet moving over the earth. Each sound fits perfectly into the slow rhythm of the day. Sarah's voice carries faintly from the house now, calling something gentle, almost musical. The sound travels lightly across the distance, clear and soft. The children look toward her, then back to Thomas. He nods once, a small gesture, and they begin to walk back through the field. Their steps move in sync with the wind's rhythm, slow, deliberate, blending with the motion of the grass. Thomas follows behind them, his hoe resting lightly against his shoulder. As they walk, the sunlight shifts, falling through the leaves of a nearby oak, scattering small patterns across the ground. The air feels alive with quiet energy, not fast, not loud, but steady, as though the earth itself moves beneath them in long, slow pulses. When they reach the yard again, the smell of fresh bread greets them, warm and sweet. Sarah stands by the doorway, her apron dusted with flour, her expression soft and calm. The children rush ahead, their small hands brushing against the edge of her skirt as they pass. She bends slightly, touching each head as they go inside. Thomas pauses for a moment near the gate. The field behind him stretches endlessly, glowing under the afternoon sun. The air shimmers faintly, and a few clouds drift lazily across the sky. Everything he sees feels both alive and still, a balance that holds itself without effort. He breathes in deeply, the scent of grass and bread and distant water mingling into one. He turns and walks toward the door. The sound of his steps is slow, steady, fading into the hum of the world around him. Inside, the voices of his family rise again, soft and even. The house feels warm, filled with the kind of peace that lingers even after the day has moved on. Outside, the fields remain, breathing under the sun, their rhythm unbroken, their song quiet and whole. The sound of the day. The afternoon unfolds with quiet ease. The sun has shifted westward, its light deepening into soft gold. It touches the roof of the cottage, the tops of the trees, and the long stretch of fields that ripple gently with the wind. The warmth lingers, but no longer presses. It rests lightly over the land, slow and full. Thomas stands once more at the edge of the yard. His eyes follow the rhythm of the grass as it bends and sways, each motion echoing the breath of the wind. The scent of earth rises from the ground, mixing with the faint sweetness of clover. Somewhere nearby, the steady hum of bees weaves through the air, a thread of sound that never breaks. Inside the house, the soft clatter of dishes fades as Sarah finishes cleaning the midday table. The children's voices drift through the open window. Gentle laughter, a few words, the sound of a wooden toy rolling across the floor. The fire has burned low, leaving only a glow of warmth in the hearth. Thomas turns toward the small shed by the fence. He pushes the door open slowly, and light spills across the rows of tools inside. He lifts the hoe and a small wooden bucket, their surfaces smooth and familiar beneath his hands. Stepping out again, he closes the door behind him, the hinge giving a soft sigh. He crosses the yard toward the garden. The soil here is dark and cool, shaped into neat rows that catch the light. The scent of herbs drifts upward as he passes. Mint, thyme, a touch of lavender. Kneeling, he begins to tend the plants. His movements are slow and deliberate. Each motion follows the next like a quiet breath. The sound of soil shifting beneath his hands fills the air, small but grounding. The children come out soon after, their steps light on the packed earth. Emma carries a small tin pail half filled with water. William holds a bundle of twine, his fingers working carefully to unwind it. Sarah Jr. follows with a handful of small wooden stakes. They spread out near the edge of the garden, each one falling into a rhythm that matches the soft pulse of the afternoon. Thomas digs shallow lines along the row, and Emma kneels beside him, pouring a thin stream of water into the freshly turned soil. The sound is gentle, a faint trickle, like rain beginning to fall on a far roof. William presses the stakes into the earth, tying the plants loosely, his movements careful and precise. None of them speak much. Their silence feels natural, shaped by the warmth of the hour. Above them, the sky stretches wide and pale blue, thin clouds drifting slowly across. The sun filters through, softened by the haze, laying a warm glow over everything it touches. A breeze moves through the tall grass, carrying the distant sound of birds calling from the woods beyond the hill. Each note fades into the air before the next begins, forming a pattern that seems endless. When the last of the garden is watered, Thomas sits back on his heels. He wipes his hands on his trousers, his breath slow and even. The air feels heavier now, rich with scent, the mix of soil, sun, and quiet life. Behind him, Sarah stands at the doorway, shading her eyes with one hand as she watches them. Her face is calm, framed by the soft light that spills from the house. She calls gently to the children, her voice a low hum that carries across the yard. They pause for a moment, then begin to gather their things. The sound of metal against wood, the rustle of fabric, the faint scrape of shoes on stone, all blend into one smooth rhythm. Thomas remains still, listening to it all, letting the calm fill him. As the children return inside, he stays for a while longer. The shadows grow longer now, stretching across the yard, thin and soft. The light deepens, turning from gold to a pale amber that glows on the edge of the horizon. The air cools slightly, brushing against his skin with a quiet sigh. He stands slowly, stretching his back, and looks toward the fields again. In the distance, a few birds rise, turning circles in the fading light, before settling back into the grass. The sound of their wings cuts gently through the air, quick but light. The world seems to breathe slower now, as if preparing for rest. Thomas walks toward the gate once more. The wood is warm under his hand. He leans against it, looking out across the open land. The stream glimmers faintly in the distance, catching the sun's last rays. The movement of the water reflects the rhythm of the day. Steady, soft, unbroken. Behind him, the cottage hums with quiet activity. Sarah moves about the kitchen, her steps light. The sound of a pan settling on the stove echoes briefly. The children's voices rise again, low and easy, carrying a note of comfort that fills the air. A light breeze moves through the yard, lifting the edges of Thomas's shirt. It carries with it the faint scent of smoke and bread, mixed with the clean coolness of approaching evening. The grass shifts, whispering softly. The distant sound of the wind passing through the trees joins in, and for a moment it feels as if the world itself is speaking in tones too low to name. Thomas closes his eyes, listening. Every sound blends into one, the rustle of grass, the hum of insects, the faint murmur of his family inside, the steady pulse of his own breath. There is no boundary between them, no separation. Only one continuous rhythm that holds everything together. When he opens his eyes again, the sun has slipped lower. The color of the sky deepens, the gold turning slowly to rose, then to a quiet silver blue. Shadows merge along the fence line, soft and blurred. The air cools further, wrapping the land in calm. He turns back toward the house. Sarah stands in the doorway once more, the light from inside spilling across the threshold, warm and golden. She calls softly to him, her tone gentle, without urgency. He nods and begins to walk. The ground feels firm beneath his boots, the last warmth of the day still lingering there. As he steps inside, the light changes. The glow from the hearth replaces the sun, wrapping the room in quiet amber. The children have gathered near the table again, their faces lit softly by the fire. The smell of stew fills the air, savory and calm, the scent of a home settling into evening. Thomas hangs his hat on the peg by the door. He glances back once, through the small window beside him. Outside, the last light of the sun rests over the fields. The wind continues to move through the grass, its sound soft and low, like a final breath before stillness. Inside, the sounds of the day fade into the quiet hum of night. The rhythm of life continues. Slow, unbroken, eternal in its simplicity. The gentle evening. The light outside softens, spreading across the land like a slow breath. The sun has dipped low beyond the hills, leaving behind a sky painted in deep gold, fading into rose, then violet. The air grows cooler, the wind moving lightly through the tall grass, brushing the surface of the world with a touch so soft it almost isn't there. Inside the cottage, the warmth of the hearth fills every corner. The soft glow of the fire moves across the wooden walls, shifting with each flicker. Shadows dance gently across the floor, their movements slow, calm, steady. The faint crackle of the embers breaks the silence in the quietest way possible, a rhythm as natural as a heartbeat. Sarah stands near the table, her hands moving slowly as she folds a piece of cloth. The children sit nearby, their voices hushed. The baby sleeps soundly in the cradle, the soft rise and fall of her chest in perfect time with the steady ticking of the clock. Thomas sits by the fire, his eyes half closed, his body still but not tired, only at peace. The scent of stew still lingers faintly in the air, mingling with the smell of warm wood and smoke. A small pot rests near the edge of the hearth, steam drifting lazily from its spout. The quiet hum of the evening fills the room, a sound made of many smaller sounds blending together, a chair shifting slightly, the wind outside pressing against the thatch, a faint whisper of fabric as Sarah moves. The children's day has slowed. Emma leans her head against the table, her sketchbook open before her. The light from the fire touches the edge of the paper, turning its surface golden. William traces shapes in the dust on the floor, lines that vanish with each small movement of his hand. George and Sarah Jr. sit close together, murmuring softly about something that doesn't need to be heard. Their voices are low and musical, blending with the quiet around them. Outside, the first sounds of night begin to appear. A bird calls once, a long, low note, then silence. Farther away, the faint rhythm of insects rises, weaving through the air like a single thread. The fields breathe slower now, their movement gentler, their sound like the hush of a sigh drawn out for the night. Thomas looks toward the window, The view beyond is dim but familiar, the faint outline of the fence, the silhouette of the old oak, the glimmer of light still caught on the surface of the stream. He watches as the last traces of the sun fade completely, leaving only a silver glow behind the clouds. The first stars appear, one by one, soft and distant. He stands and walks toward the door. The wooden floor creaks under his boots, a sound deep and steady. When he opens the door, the cool air slips in, brushing against his face and bringing with it the scent of evening, damp earth, wood smoke, and the faint sweetness of grass cooling under the sky. He steps outside, and the quiet of the land wraps around him. The world has changed color. The gold of afternoon has given way to grey-blue, then to a soft silver cast by the rising moon. The fence lines are pale in the dim light, and the fields stretch endlessly, their edges lost in shadow. The sound of wind moving through the grass continues, soft and even, like the murmur of breath in sleep. Thomas stands still, listening. Each sound finds its place, the faint chirp of crickets, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of an owl. Above, the sky opens wide, filled now with stars scattered like dust. The moon hangs low, a thin curve of light that glows faintly against the darkness. The world seems slower here, softer, as if it has folded itself inward, content to rest. He leans against the fence, feeling the cool wood beneath his hand. The night air fills his lungs cool and pure. He lets it go slowly, his breath visible for a moment before it disappears. Every part of the world seems to breathe with him. Steady, measured, whole. Behind him, the faint glow from the cottage windows spreads across the yard. It flickers softly, spilling through the glass in warm streaks that touch the ground and fade. The light feels alive, a small heartbeat in the vast quiet of the land. Sarah's voice carries faintly through the open door, soft and low, speaking to the children. Her tone is calm, gentle, wrapping around each word like a blanket. Thomas turns slightly, watching her silhouette move within the light. The rhythm of her voice, the warmth of the glow, the faint rustle of movement. They blend together into something that feels eternal. He stays outside for a little while longer. The wind has softened now, moving in waves that barely touch the ground. The grass bends lightly, whispering as it moves. In the distance, a stream reflects the moonlight, its surface broken only by the smallest ripples. Everything else is still. When Thomas finally turns back to the house, he moves slowly, his steps quiet. The wooden door opens with a soft sigh, and the warmth of the room greets him again. Inside, Sarah has settled in her chair near the fire, her hands resting on her lap. The children sit gathered around her, their eyes heavy with sleep. Emma's head leans against Sarah's shoulder, her eyelids fluttering. William lies curled on a small rug, one arm tucked beneath his cheek. George and Sarah Jr. sit together near the hearth, their voices now just whispers, fading into nothing. The baby sleeps soundly, her breathing soft and steady. Thomas closes the door behind him and removes his hat, placing it gently on the peg. The sound of the latch clicking into place is quiet, but final. The last sound before night truly arrives. He crosses the room, his boots making a faint sound against the floor, and sits once more in his chair beside the fire. The flames burn low now, their light dim but constant. The shadows on the walls move slowly, their edges blurred by the glow. The air is warm and thick with calm, each breath heavy with rest. Sarah lifts her gaze toward him for a moment, her eyes soft, tired, but peaceful. He nods once, and she smiles. Outside, the wind moves once more, brushing against the walls of the cottage. The sound is faint, steady, and rhythmic. The world beyond the window fades further into darkness, the last color of the sky dissolving into black and silver. Inside, everything settles. The fire crackles one final time, sending a thin trail of smoke upward before quieting. The sound of the clock continues, marking the passing moments with slow precision. Each tick feels softer than the last. Sarah rises, her steps light, and moves to the cradle. She adjusts the blanket around the baby, her movements tender and sure. Then she walks to the door, checking the latch one last time before returning to her chair. She sits, folds her hands, and closes her eyes briefly. The quiet deepens. Thomas leans back, his body sinking into the worn wood of the chair. His eyes drift toward the ceiling, where the shadows sway gently, then back to the fire's glow. The warmth presses against his skin, steady and soothing. His breathing slows. The children are asleep now, their small forms still, their breaths soft and even. The sound of the room becomes a rhythm of its own. The gentle rise and fall of breath, the faint whisper of air, the slow pulse of the fire. It is the sound of life resting. Thomas closes his eyes. The weight of the day fades from his shoulders, leaving only stillness. The warmth of the fire, the sound of Sarah's slow breathing, the soft rustle of the wind outside, all merge into one continuous lull, carrying him deeper into calm. The world holds its silence. Outside, the stars watch over the land. The moon hangs above the fields, casting a pale light across the grass. The brook glimmers faintly, its voice quieter now, a soft murmur that joins the sound of the wind. Inside the cottage, the light of the fire flickers once more, then steadies. The air is warm, full and still. The rhythm of night takes hold completely. Steady, slow, endless. No sound breaks it. No thought disturbs it. Only breath and warmth, and the quiet that fills all things. The day has folded into night, and the world has come to rest. The hearth glows softly in the darkness. The fields sleep beyond the window. And inside this small home, every life, every sound, every moment drifts together into peace. The night breathes. The night settles across the land, soft and unbroken. The air outside is cool and still, filled with the quiet weight of darkness. A thin mist gathers over the fields, drifting like a veil between earth and sky. The moon hangs low, pale and patient, its light spreading gently across the cottage roof, the fence, the slow curve of the stream beyond. Inside, the warmth of the fire fades to a steady glow. The last embers pulse faintly, breathing light that shimmers and fades again, in time with the slow rhythm of the room. Shadows lie long and quiet across the floor, their edges blurred, their movements slowed almost to stillness. The faint scent of smoke lingers, mixing with the soft sweetness of sleep. Thomas sleeps in his chair beside the hearth. His head rests against the back, his hands loose in his lap. The lines of his face have softened, the quiet has found him completely. The light from the embers touches the edge of his sleeve, the side of his cheek, the curve of his jaw, before slipping away again. His breathing is steady, deep, and slow, the sound of rest without effort. Across the room, Sarah lies on the small bed near the window. The children sleep close by, their shapes small beneath the thin blankets. The baby rests in the cradle, unmoving except for the gentle rise and fall of her chest. The sound of their breathing fills the air in a soft pattern, weaving with the faint creak of the wooden beams above, the slow whisper of the wind outside. The house seems to breathe with them. The walls hold the warmth of the day. The air moves gently through the small cracks in the wood, carrying the scent of the fields. Each sound is slow, rounded, complete. The hush of air, the faint sigh of the fire, the heartbeat of stillness. Nothing stirs. Time feels wide, uncounted, spread like the night itself. Outside, the land rests beneath a sky of quiet silver. The grass shifts only when the wind touches it, the sound faint, like distant whispers. The stream moves gently, its surface catching the light of the moon, a slow shimmer that ripples then stills. Every corner of the world seems to hold its breath. The oak tree beyond the yard stands motionless, its branches drawn dark against the lighter sky. A single leaf falls, gliding through the air without a sound, settling softly into the grass below. Insects hum faintly, their tone low and even, as if singing to the night itself. The fields stretch out endlessly. From one edge of the horizon to the other, the land glows faintly, touched by the moon's quiet hand. The mist moves slowly between the furrows, curling around the stones resting over the soil. The air carries a faint trace of water, of earth, of sleep. Inside, the rhythm of breathing continues. Thomas's chest rises and falls in time with Sarah's. The children's smaller breaths fill the spaces between, like notes of a soft, endless song. The cradle creaks once, then settles. The baby sighs, her voice so small it folds back into the air. The clock ticks on. Its sound is softer now, almost hidden beneath the rest. Each second passes without urgency, a sound that seems to dissolve as soon as it begins. The wind outside moves again. It passes over the roof, through the chimney, across the yard. It stirs the grass, touches the fence, brushes the face of the stream. It is neither warm nor cold, only balanced, timeless, full of calm. A small cloud passes before the moon, and for a while the world dims. The light inside the cottage fades until only the faint red of the embers remains. The darkness is deep but kind, the kind that protects rather than hides. Every shape softens. The table, the chairs, the cradle, the quiet outline of those who sleep. The mist thickens outside. It moves across the fields like slow water, touching the walls of the cottage, wrapping it gently in silence. The air feels closer now, heavier, as though the night itself is breathing just beyond the door. Thomas stirs once, a faint motion of the hand, a quiet sigh. His head tilts slightly to one side, his breathing deepens again. The rhythm returns, calm, certain, unbroken. A log shifts in the hearth, falling slightly, sending up a small shower of sparks. The brief light fills the room for a moment, golden, soft, alive, then fades once more into the deep red glow. The sparks drift upward, tiny stars that vanish before reaching the ceiling. For an instant, it feels as though the fire and the night are speaking the same language. The world holds still again. The only sound now is the low hum of the wind beyond the window, the steady breath of the sleepers, and the faint pulse of the fire's glow. Each sound moves slowly, overlapping in perfect rhythm, forming the quiet heartbeat of the night. Outside, the moon slips free of the cloud once more. Its light spreads over the land again, silver and pure. It touches the roof of the cottage, the surface of the stream, the tops of the trees. It glides over the mist, turning it to soft white. Everything beneath it glows faintly, as if alive with stillness. The world feels endless but close, vast yet gentle. Every sound is part of the same pattern, the hush of wind, the rhythm of water, the slow, measured breath of those who rest. The fields no longer move, the brook hums low, the stars seem nearer, their light sharp but kind. Somewhere far away an owl calls once, its voice a hollow note that fades almost before it's heard. Silence returns, smooth and whole. Inside, the air cools slightly. The fire's light thins to a dim shimmer, the last of the embers folding into ash. Yet the warmth remains, held by the walls, by the breath of those within. The house feels like a single living thing, breathing, resting, dreaming. Time drifts without direction. Minutes blend into hours, though they are no longer counted. The line between waking and sleep fades. The sound of the clock disappears. The air becomes one long, slow movement, the pulse of the night stretching into infinity. The mist outside curls once more around the cottage. The grass bends under its touch. The water continues to move beneath it, quiet and unseen. The stars shift slightly above, their light steady, patient, eternal. Thomas dreams, though the dream has no shape. It is only warmth and quiet, the memory of sound, the feel of the wind across his face. Sarah breathes beside him, her hand resting near the cradle. The baby's small fingers curl once, then open again. The children sleep deeply, their faces soft, their dreams unspoken. The night deepens further. The air thickens with calm. The wind fades to nothing. The fields hold still. The sky glows faintly, not from light, but from stillness itself. And then, as if the world has exhaled, everything falls completely silent. No movement, no sound, only the steady breath of those within and the soft hum of the earth below. The night breathes slow and full, carrying the whole world in its rhythm. The cottage rests at its center, small, warm, alive, surrounded by the vast quiet of the land. The stars watch without blinking. The moon hangs above, eternal and still. The air itself hums with peace, unbroken and deep. And there, within the heart of the stillness, the family sleeps, wrapped in warmth, their dreams moving softly through the rhythm of the night. Nothing more is needed. Nothing more is said. The world is whole. The night breathes. The still morning. The first light returns without sound. It comes softly, moving across the horizon like a breath. The sky shifts from dark to grey, from grey to a pale silver that glows faintly above the sleeping fields. The mist begins to lift, slow and uncertain at first, then curling upward as the warmth of dawn touches it. The world stirs, not with movement, but with awareness, the quiet sense that night is par. The air outside is cool and damp. A single drop of water falls from the edge of the roof, landing softly on the ground below. The sound is small, but it carries through the silence. The fields glimmer faintly under the early light, each blade of grass holding a bead of dew. The brook moves with a faint shimmer, the surface touched by the first gold of day. Inside the cottage, the quiet still holds. The fire has burned to a deep red ash. Thomas moves first. His breath deepens, his hand shifts slightly against the arm of the chair. The light reaches him, sliding across the floor, touching the edge of his boots, then climbing toward his face. His eyelids flicker once before opening halfway. The world returns to him in stillness. The dim glow of the room, the faint sound of the wind, the steady breathing of those W. He stays still for a while, his eyes tracing the outlines of the room, the chairs, the table, the small shapes of the children wrapped in their blankets. Sarah lies near the window, her face soft, her hand resting close to the cradle. The baby stirs, a small sound escaping before she settles again. The world feels suspended between sleep and waking, a breath held between two moments. Thomas exhales slowly. The sound is quiet but clear, a signal of life returning. He rises from the chair, moving carefully so the floor does not creak too loud. His steps are measured, each one a whisper against the wood. He moves to the window and opens it just enough to let the cool morning air drift in. It carries with it the scent of dew and soil, of grass and quiet promise. Outside, the first bird calls, one note, long and low, answered by another somewhere farther away. The sound spreads gently like ripples on still water. The mist continues to lift, revealing more of the land, the fence, the curve of the yard, the distant line of trees. Everything glows faintly in the soft light. Sarah's eyes open slowly. She doesn't speak, doesn't move much. Her gaze finds Thomas by the window, and for a moment they simply look at one another. There is no need for words. The air between them carries everything. The quiet gratitude of rest, the ease of another day beginning, the comfort of knowing nothing has changed. The children stir one by one, a rustle of fabric, a small sigh, a whisper of movement. Emma opens her eyes and blinks at the ceiling before turning her face toward the light. William stretches, rubbing his eyes with slow hands. George rolls over, half asleep still, his breathing deep and even. Sarah Jr. lifts her head slightly, blinking through the early haze. The baby stirs again, her small fingers curling, then relaxing. The room begins to fill with soft sound, not noise, but life. The faint shuffle of feet against the floor, the quiet sound of Sarah setting the kettle back on the hearth, the gentle creak of the door as Thomas steps outside. The world expands around these small sounds, accepting them, folding them into the stillness of morning. The air outside is cool but not cold. The sky has turned to pale blue now, streaked with thin lines of white cloud. The fields lie open, covered in a thin sheen of dew that glimmers under the light. The wind moves just enough to make the grass sway. The sound it makes is low, constant, endless. The sound of a world waking, but not yet speaking. Thomas walks toward the well. His boots press softly into the damp ground, leaving clear prints that fill slowly with water. The rope creaks as he lowers the bucket, the sound deep and steady. When it rises again, the water catches the morning light, 1,000 tiny reflections dancing before falling still. He pours some into a pail, then stands, watching the steam rise faintly in the chill air. From the doorway, Sarah watches him. Her shawl is wrapped loosely around her shoulders, her hair still slightly tousled from sleep. She steps outside, barefoot on the wooden threshold, her movements slow and quiet. The sound of her steps joins the rhythm of the morning, light and steady. The children appear soon after, sleepy-eyed but smiling. Emma holds the baby in her arms, her small voice humming something soft and without words. William carries a small bundle of firewood, setting it near the door. George and Sarah Jr. follow behind, each moving in silence, their faces calm. The sun finally crests the horizon, its light spilling across the land in a soft wave. It touches the fence, the well, the edge of the house, then spreads into the fields. The world brightens, not suddenly but gradually, as though it is waking in time with its inhabitants. The air warms slightly. The mist thins and drifts away. The brook catches the sunlight, scattering it in glints of gold. The birds' songs grow clearer now, not loud, not sharp, but layered, gentle, continuous. The sound fills the air without breaking the calm. It feels as though the day itself is breathing. Thomas stands near the fence again, looking out across the fields. The world stretches before him, endless and familiar. Every color feels new. Green, gold, silver, yet known, the same as every morning before. The rhythm of the land continues, patient and complete. Behind him, the soft sound of Sarah's voice calls the children inside. The tone is kind, steady. The door opens, and the smell of breakfast drifts into the air. Bread warming near the fire, the faint sweetness of milk, the quiet clink of a spoon against a bowl, the sound of home. Thomas turns once more toward the horizon. The wind brushes past his face, cool and clean. The sunlight warms the crown of his hat. He breathes deeply, the air filling his chest, then releases it slowly. The sound of his breath blends with the sound of the fields, with the rhythm of the stream, with the hum of life returning. He steps back toward the house. His boots press softly against the grass. The door waits open for him, the warmth of the firelight visible through the frame. He enters, the sound of his steps merging with the quiet of the room. Sarah looks up, her eyes bright, her smile small but full. He removes his hat, setting it on the peg. The children sit at the table now, their movements gentle, their voices low. The baby lies in her cradle, her small face turned toward the light. The room glows, the fire's soft orange mingling with the gold of the rising sun. Thomas sits beside Sarah. For a moment, they say nothing. The world beyond the walls moves slowly, its sounds blending into the rhythm of breath and warmth. Inside, everything feels settled. The day has begun, but without rush, without need. The first bird sings again outside, louder now, yet still soft enough to belong to the stillness. The clock ticks on, steady, patient, marking the quiet return of time. Sarah pours warm milk into 2 cups and places one before Thomas. The steam rises, twisting through the air, catching the light. They drink in silence. The fields outside shine with new color. The sun moves higher, its warmth spreading. The shadows shorten, pulling back toward the base of the house. The sky brightens to a pale, endless blue. The morning has returned, the night has passed, and yet nothing truly changes. The rhythm continues. Breath, sound, light, silence. Each one folded into the next. The world turns quietly, and life moves with it. Inside the cottage, the family begins the day once more, their movements slow, their voices low, their hearts steady. The sound of life returns to the house, soft, measured, whole. Outside, the air glows. The stream whispers. The wind moves through the grass. The sun rises higher. The world is awake again, gentle, calm, endless. And somewhere within its quiet rhythm, another day begins to breathe.